This is Wade, and you are in Wade World. Today, Wade is going to simplify and essentially tell you the truth about what all the disorder in the world is about. You might point to many isms: Marxism, feminism, communism, all of which are pushed by the usual suspects. But even the usual suspects are not the main issue. We had thousands of years ago, the Greeks destroyed the Phoenicians, Carthage. The Phoenicians practiced all sorts of behaviors like homosexuality, mutilation of children, child sacrifice, and they were destroyed by the Greeks. Now, if you're seeing a pattern here with people who do the same now, it's an evidence of the point. And the point is that at its very base, maybe a step before the very base, all of the issues that you see around you, it is not a foreign adversary, just a foreign adversary. It's not just a foreign race. It's not just your women. It's basically a struggle between the strong men and the weak men in any civilization and society. For example, let's take a very simple example, and this might differ by race because most races have a different level of IQ and testosterone, average testosterone levels. If your average testosterone levels are low, even if you're a high IQ race, you just will not feel the visceral reaction that is required by the average man to keep this society in a state of balance, not just order or chaos, which is very destructive, but balance. Good example is if you live in a society where, and you're young, let's be honest, as men, our testosterone shoots up when we enter puberty. And when you're young, all you want to do is run after girls. You don't care. The more immodest they are, the more fun they are. So you don't really care about these things. But as you grow up, as you become more mature and you have more experience, and if you have the intelligence, you do realize, for example, that as a man, your goal in life is to focus on your goals. Now, that means your attention should be focused. If you are in a civilization where your girls are running around half naked with their TNA in front of you, or they're just wearing extremely revealing outfits, again, this applies if you have a normal testosterone level. Then, keeping aside all of the justifications and the muling, it is extremely distracting. You cannot focus on your goal if every time you step outside the house, you have a constant distraction to all of these girls who are dressed to distract, who are dressed to titillate. Now, this is also only possible because you are outnumbered by weak men. If you were in a society of strong men, modesty, both on men and more on girls, would be enforced because as men, we are visual creatures. We get affected a lot more by what a girl is wearing or looks like, or if she's being immodest or dressing like a prostitute. Girls, they find our personalities more attractive, and you can't really flaunt your personality. Again, if honesty on men would come like flaunting your wealth or this and that. But it has that same sort of effect, social status, fame. But it's very limited to very few men, and most of the time it's not going to hyper distract a girl from doing her duty in a society, which is basically being a productive member of society and making sure it continues. So if you are thinking that makes sense, why do we allow it? It's because you are outnumbered by weak men. And you have not yet come up with a system that makes sense to you, that appeals to you, that actually either filters out the weak men or trains them not to act like weak men, not to allow these behaviors to stand. Because weak men, they will do anything. These are men who are mostly unfit to reproduce, so they will do anything. Simps are weak men, white knights are weak men. They will do anything to get into some girl. They'll, flatter her, lie to her, support all her destructive policies, and then get into her pants even if she's 40 because they're so desperate. But you have to get to a system if you don't want to accept religious explanation for this, reasons for this, for modesty in society. You have to then get to a system where you understand, like, hey, this is absolutely crucial for the not only the functioning of society, but the thriving of society and the strength of society. An immodest society will collapse. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. It doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you are an immodest society and you defend it, you are never going to win against barbarians, if you want to call them, who enforce this. And this is one of those things that if you require reason, Wade will provide it. A high IQ, low or middle testosterone society of men, where the weak men do not let the strong men enforce balance on the society. And the biggest indication of this is immodesty in their girls. This society, regardless of how much high IQ they have, will always be defeated by a society of men who may have much lower IQ, but they enforce modesty on the girls and the men in their society. It's always going to happen. At the end of the day, your high IQ is being defeated by a low testosterone, and their low IQ is being offset by their high testosterone. Because at the end of the day, if you are a low testosterone man, you are not affected by this. And you could literally be thinking right now, that's how powerful hormones are. You'd be like, oh, that doesn't matter to me. Girls can wear whatever they want. Literally, if you step outside and you're not visually affected by uh, girls dressing immodestly, you are a low testosterone man. And a low testosterone man does not think like a man. You are, by definition, a weak man because you can't function properly, you can't think properly, you can't focus properly, you have no drive. And why do you have no drive? Because you're missing the most basic drive of a man, a sex drive, which is based on what? Visual stimuli. So, this was just an example. This is not a whole spiel about modesty or immodesty, but this is an example. If you live in a society where immodesty is not only allowed, it's encouraged, then you are living in a society of weak men. These are the men who will vote for stupid stuff. These are the men who actually want democracy because the weak outnumber the strong. The inferior outnumber the superior. This is the law of nature. Nature is like, here's a bunch of beings, and let's mix them all together and get the best through a filter, through a selection process. So, if just this one example, if you are living in a society that glorifies immodesty, if you support immodesty, you are living in a society of weak men. Weak men stop strong men from enforcing balance. Weak men stop strong men from making the society stronger. Literally. If you are out, and we live in such times that you can definitely see this, if you are out and about and you see a girl in your civilization. Dressed like a prostitute. I'm talking her tees are out. She's wearing shorts where half her ass is hanging out. And this girl is allowed to walk around dressed like a prostitute in front of children, in front of families, and all that. It's not because of you, it's because of this army of weak men surrounding her that will defend this absolutely destructive behavior in the hopes of getting the reward of access to her, sexual access to her, when she probably won't give it to them anyway. So, this is just as a man, you understand this, right? Because your sex drive is basically the defining feature, one of the defining features of being a man, and a good indication of how healthy mentally and hormonally you are. So, this is just one example of this army of weak men that you have failed to train or failed to reason with, leading to a destruction and chaos in your society. A society with immodesty is always going to be destroyed. The Spartans were a great example. They had a fantastic military society where motherhood was glorified. They won over Greece, and then Greece brought its culture to Sparta. It made them comfortable. When it made them comfortable, the military, family, motherhood, all of this went away. At the end of 70 to 90 years ruling Greece, Sparta was destroyed. And if you read the books about Sparta, the writers say the women are walking around like prostitutes, barely wearing anything, and the men are not interested. The men are not interested. It's not that the men are not interested, it's that it's a society of weak men. They don't have the guts, and they will defend this degeneracy in the hopes of getting some. While the degeneracy they defend, these women are lost, these girls are lost because they're looking for strong men. They want a man who'll be like, stop dressing like a whore, stop dressing like a prostitute. Just one indication. If your society has weak morals, if your society is allowing a foreign race to control its government, if your society is allowing invaders from low IQ country, if your society is allowing your women and girls to act like prostitutes without consequence, if your society is killing children in the womb, all of these reasons, it's them, it's the usual suspects, it's this ism, it's that ism, you're fine, you're correct in that, but drill down to the cause of it. Don't look at the symptoms. Feminism, communism, Marxism, this ism, that ism. It's a symptom. The disease at its very, very fundamental level is a society of strong men, hamstrung, outnumbered by a society of weak men. Furthermore, and we're going to end it soon, but here's some homework for you. Every single strong civilization, whether it was the Greeks, it was the Egyptians, it was the Romans, ancient civilizations, like them or not, Indians were civilized 4,000 years ago. The Chinese, the Babylonian Talmud, the Jews are looking at like the 7,500-year-old document as well. All of these civilizations reached a point where the strong men made it so comfortable that too many weak men arose. And today, if you look at the cultures of these people, the Greeks, the Italians, the Egyptians, the Indians, and all these other old civilizations, what do you see? Really, what do you see? A society of weak men bossed around by horrible women with very, very, very minority of strong and wise men. That is the end goal of all societies that are run by weak men. Because weak men, by definition, are not high testosterone. Weak men, by definition, do not understand the second, third, fourth order consequences of their actions. Weak men, by definition, should not be having a say in the rule of a society. That is why democracy is loved by all the weirdos in the world, because weak men are given a voice, and every single time weak men are given a voice in democracy, Weak men are, first of all men are given the vote. 80% of us are, let's be honest, on the path of weakness, right? What do they do? Within 10 or 20 years, they give all women the vote. That is the death knell of a civilization. Because not now don't you have a voting block not only of weak men, but you have a voting block of overgrown children, which is basically girls. They never grow up, they only grow old. And just like feminine men, they project this onto men. Every single thing that doesn't make sense to you as a strong, high testosterone, higher IQ man is because you do not understand that these are the qualities of girls and weak men. Projection. It makes no sense, right? To blame someone else for what you are guilty of, but that is a feminine, weak man, girly trait. If you want to save your society, you have to understand the basic fact. The most successful religions understand this fact that weak men have to be channeled to be stronger, to eliminate the destructive consequences of their weakness and channel it in a way that either filters out the worst of them or makes them a productive member of society. You can look at different religions that do this. You may not agree with them, but if you drill down to the basics, if you want a civilization to be strong, if you want a civilization to thrive, if you want a civilization to actually rise and be enduring, you cannot let weakness among your men have power. You cannot let the weak men among you dictate it. You have to have a filter to beat the weakness out of them, train it out of them, and if it cannot be, then get them out of the civilization. Look at history, do some research, because going forward, all the news that we're looking at, all the opinions that we're looking at, it boils down to this: weak men. Weak men are easily manipulated, just like women. In fact, you can basically say weak men are even worse versions of girls, because at least girls are honest in their absolutely primitive behaviors towards men. They're like biological robots that haven't changed. But weak men combine the worst of this girly behavior with the drive of men, even if it's low testosterone. They are the useful idiots that are behind every revolution that beheaded or hung their own kings. And now their countries are being destroyed by invaders. And they're complaining. Their people are dying. The women are just out there fornicating, not having children. These weak men were the instrument used by smarter men to destroy their civilizations. And the smarter men of the civilizations themselves became too weak, themselves became not ruthless enough to cull the weak men from their ranks. At its basic, every single conflict in this world, every single conflict in your society is between the strong men and the weak men. And the weak will always outnumber the strong. So the strong, you have to find a system to eliminate this weakness from your society, or train them not to be weak. It can be done. There are religions that you may disagree with, but that have done an excellent job of channeling weak men, an excellent job of eliminating the weaknesses and the bad traits that weak men bring with them. If you need to be reasoned into it, Wade can help with that. But at its core, there's just one level more. That's it. And before this one bottom level of all conflict in this entire reality and universe, right? This is this penultimate concept. It's the strong man versus the weak man. That's it. Hope you think about it and you take it to bed, because this will help a lot in understanding what is wrong in your society. And if you're a weak man, this will definitely make you angry and upset. And if it does so, there are two paths in front of you. Either you can be a strong man by understanding your own defects, or you are irredeemable and you will blame Wade and everybody else who talks about you and externalize the blame, just like girls, but in a masculine body. So until next time, keep it cool, keep it smart, and enjoy.